Last week on this program, we talked a lot about Michael Sam. Well, we're going to do it again because no more than an hour after we talked about his commitment to surviving the preseason and making the team, leaving the media circus of his draft behind, there was word from the OWN network that he would be the star of a documentary television series. Here's his agent, Cameron Weiss, talking on ESPN Radio's Mike and Mike in the Morning.
We're talking about, capturing just Mike's personal reactions and mainly not even on his training days, on his off days away from the team, things that give us insight into his private and personal life and into his journey and what's going on inside of his head.
Is this something that Michael was all for when presented to him, or were there reservations about this is going to be training camp and I need to concentrate on football?
There's always pros and cons when you're talking about a decision like this, but I think, we know the magnitude of the journey. Mike's number one goal, of course, is to make the roster, and the team we put in place is absolutely going to respect that, and we're not going to try and put anything additional on his plate if we see that there's stress or anything like that. Of course, there's always going to be situations, where a guy needs extra rest, a guy's tired, he needs to get, PT, whatever it is, and, we're completely going to be respectful of that. We've been assured there will be respect to that on the own side. And no one is going to complicate this journey for Mike, if at all possible.
That was Thursday. By Friday night, the OWN network announced that it was postponing the series. Part of that decision was a discussion with the St. Louis Rams. Apparently, plans for this program were put in place without the knowledge of the team or the NFL.
Well, it's interesting because there are some reports that suggest, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch had one, saying that the NFL knew about it ahead of time but didn't bother to tell the teams. It's unclear whether they deny it. It's unclear whether that's true. It's apparently true that the Rams did not know. And that's one of the things that kind of just upset me as a viewer of this whole thing. Was it may be true that Michael Sam is all about making the team, but the impression that story left was that he's about a lot of other things, including cashing in on his notoriety.
What I would say, speaking of cashing in, is that it's very interesting to me that the NFL I'm not sure if they didn't see the opportunity first or if they just didn't get to the opportunity first. The NFL, I covered the Chiefs for 15 years, and when I first got to Kansas City, they allowed us free rundown on the sidelines. We could go where about year 5 in, man, it started to lock down more and more. The NFL is about controlling its brand, as is Major League Baseball, as is the NBA, and the fact that they didn't see the opportunity to create just this kind of documentary within their own walls, and that OWN jumped in on that and got ahead of them, I think that was a pretty big deal.
Well, and the NFL is among the most strict of each of those leagues that you had mentioned. During games, news organizations are only allowed to post so many photos, etc. What's interesting, though, is there are other documentary series. There's one on HBO, there's one on ESPN. How big of a distraction could this have been? I mean, it doesn't seem like one if there are these other shows out there.
I mean, my guess is that you had two competing interests here. You had the Rams' interest in not having a circus made of their training camp and getting ready for a season where they have drafted enough players that they might actually be pretty decent this coming season, versus the NFL and their brand identity. As Jim said, if the NFL had thought of it first and had worked it out or forced it quietly upon the Rams, it would have happened. But because it was Oprah's network and none of that had happened, I think that's why we saw it get canceled.
How big a distraction? As equally as big as an opportunity it is for whatever you might want to say about what this story can become for the NFL, for Michael Sam, for the St. Louis Rams. It is huge. It is huge on any, but I think the key is, especially when you come to the dollars and cents of all of it, is everybody being on the same page and managing whatever that message is. Otherwise, it's a huge distraction.